We talk about Easter eggs and hidden secrets in games all the time here on gameranx, but let's talk about some old ones. Here are 10 Easter eggs that turned games into legends. Starting off at number 10, let's talk about a remastered Time Splitters 2 inside of the game Homefront: The Revolution. Now, it wasn't long after the game came out that people discovered an arcade cabinet where you could play actually the first 2 levels of Time Splitters 2. It was a cute Easter egg, but once the 2 levels were done, everyone just assumed that was it and moved on with their lives. This was back in 2016 when the first game came out, and it wasn't until 2021 when developers on Twitter were talking about their favorite Easter eggs. That's when the bomb dropped. That it wasn't just the first 2 levels in Homefront, it was actually the entire game. The entire time, there was a cheat code that would unlock the whole thing, but nobody knew what it was. And that included the guy who actually made the cheat code. They wrote it down somewhere and then lost it, leaving fans to reverse engineer what the code could possibly be. It was eventually found, and the rest is history. Time Splitters 2 is a beloved first-person shooter for a reason. It's like one of the best follow-ups to GoldenEye and Perfect Dark that we ever got, and bizarrely, this is the best version of the game you can play. It isn't just some half-assed emulation. The game got the full 4K PC port treatment, which is crazy for something that most people just didn't even notice. It's such an excellent port that people are buying Homefront: The Revolution just for Time Splitters 2. It's a truly legendary Easter egg, not just because of how long it took for it to finally be revealed, but simply because of how great it is for fans of the Time Splitters games. Nobody would even be talking about Homefront, no offense, if not for this Easter egg. The game isn't that great, but Time Splitters 2 is awesome. Next, over at number 9, let's talk about the Wall of Death from Motocross Madness. Now, unless you're a very specific type of old school PC gamer, there's really only one thing you probably know about the classic Motocross Madness series, and it's this all-time great Easter egg. If you've seen any Easter egg compilation videos online, then you've probably seen this one at this point. All you have to do to trigger it is drive off track and continue going in the wrong direction until you hit an invisible wall. Now, in most games, that's it. It's just like a flat stop, but these guys had some fun with it and made it so anytime you went too far off track, your bike would get launched hundreds of feet into the air with the sound of a cannon blast and then come crashing to the ground with like a cartoon Looney Tunes sound effect. It's so good. We'll run it here. For people who played this game back in the day, it was endlessly entertaining to drive into this wall of death. Kids would do it for hours. It was so funny. At this point, we think this Easter egg may be more famous than the actual game. We're not saying that to undersell this long-running, loosely connected series, but the Easter egg is just that legendary. Next, over at number 8, let's talk about the All Bonds cheat from GoldenEye 007. Now, like so many schoolyard rumors back in the day, like my uncle worked at Nintendo, this one started actually as an April Fool's joke in Electronic Gaming Monthly. I don't know how kids fell for this stuff. I guess everyone was just really stupid back in the 90s because this Shenlong, the Tomb Raider nude cheat codes, they were all featured in the annual April Fool's section of the Classic Gaming magazine, and then people thought they were real, but these things were obviously fake. They made a whole separate section for this part of the magazine. It was clearly marked as a joke, but kids just wanted this stuff to be real so bad that I guess they just believed it anyway. Now, unlike Shenlong or nude codes for Lara Croft, this one turned out to have a kernel of truth to it. The original EGM article talked about a potential way to unlock 4 separate Bond skins to play as in multiplayer with Pierce Brosnan Bond. So former Bonds, Sean Connery, George Lazenby, Roger Moore, and Timothy Dalton. And while the method they gave to unlock was obviously impossible, many still believed, and the rumors about other Bonds being in the game persisted. Now, the funny thing about the rumor is that very rarely they actually end up being true. In an interview with Martin Hollis and David Doak, 2 of the main devs behind the game, they revealed that yes, there actually was meant to be multiple former Bonds in the game. Originally, they were given carte blanche with the franchise, so they assumed it was okay to throw in all the other Bonds. But after showing the work to the licensees, and the big corporate execs, they started getting cold feet and were worried that some of the former Bonds, Connery specifically, might get a little litigious. So the Bonds were pulled from the game. Well, mostly at least, they can actually still be accessed in the game files, and clever fans have managed to use Game codes to access these skins that previously only existed in rumors. They're awkward to use, but with mods, fans have finally recreated the multiplayer Bond vs. Bond experience that EGM comically promised us so many years ago. It's one of those legendary schoolyard rumors. It's as if like somehow we just found out that Mew was actually under the truck. Almost all of this stuff is BS, but somehow this one ended up kind of being real. Now over at number 7, of course, the obligatory secret cow level from Diablo 2. Now, back before the internet was ubiquitous and everyone was super online, video game secrets weren't so easily cracked. Now, there are tons of game secrets and Easter eggs that go by totally unnoticed and unknown these days, but that's only because people aren't paying attention. Stuff like the fabled cow level from the original Diablo, people would figure out. The game is just too popular for players not to dig through every nanometer of code and come up with an answer. Back when the first game came out though, all we had were rumors, and this one was rampant. I mean, people were going nuts trying to figure out the supposed secret of the cow in Tristram. There was like even a screenshot floating around showing a herd of demonic cows in a town. People wanted to believe. We don't know who made it, but good job, whoever made that. That thing has lived on forever. But this screenshot and all this rumor led to one of the earliest instances of a developer directly addressing the community, when Blizzard put in a secret code in StarCraft that was literally just typing in "there is no cow level." It was an instant victory code. So when Diablo 2 actually had the secret cow level set in everything with the killer cows and everything, it blew people's minds. Unlocking this place is legendary on its own. The process is burned into our brain at this point. Wurt's leg plus a town scroll, simple. That takes you to this field full of powerful cow enemies that drop high quality loot. Somehow, this place went from like a bizarre rumor to an essential part of high-level Diablo 2 play. Farming this place is like a time-honored tradition. It's a rite of passage, really. Diablo 2 is already a legendary game, but the cow level makes it that much better. Now, over at number 6, sometimes all it takes to make a game legendary is the right Easter egg. This generic browser game called SpongeBob Saves the Day debuted back in 2019 and would otherwise be in the dustbin of history along with the thousands of other completely unremarkable web games, if not for some curious player digging through the game's sprite sheet and finding this thing. Referred to by fans as Yummer because of the sprite sheet's section title of TTMP Yummer. This thing must have made creepypasta kids' heads explode. It's a creepypasta that's real. It's in this random ass game. People are so obsessed with this thing that they know exactly how it was made. Like, according to the cutting room floor, the eyes come from an anatomy notes page on eye popping, a Wikipedia page specifically about adult teeth, and some stock footage ears on a computer-generated head model. It's absolutely bizarre, and it is easily like the most famous thing about SpongeBob Saves the Day, which I totally forgot about. Like, we even know why this thing exists, as the actual guy who created it explained that it was made as a modeling test and was kept around as an inside joke around the developer's office. Apparently, they called this thing Yum because it's the exact opposite of what you would use to describe him. I mean, yeah, they're not wrong. Apparently they were actually thinking of putting this thing in the game, decided against it, but forgot to remove it from the sprite sheet, and the rest is history. You're welcome, internet. Now over at number 5, let's talk about the Naboo Starfighter from Rogue Squadron. Now, these days, if a developer wants to add in content to their game to coincide with like an upcoming movie, it's easy. Just patch the game on the day you want players to access it, or keep it locked in a private server until you want to reveal it. But what happens when a Nintendo 64 game wants to include something from a movie that's not coming out for another 5 months? Well, there was no patching, so all you could do is put it in the game and just hide it really, really well. That means they had to keep a ship from one of the most highly anticipated movies of all time secret for months, and they somehow managed to do it. How? Well, apparently by keeping most of the developers out of it. The ship was designed for the game in secret, and most of the staff and Level 5 and LucasArts never even knew about it. And on top of that, a scrambling system was implemented to keep people from finding the ship using GameShark codes. It wasn't until the movie came out that they finally revealed how to access the ship in-game, and while most sources online say that it's like a code, there's actually more to it, and that's probably why this Easter egg ended up being so hard to find. To actually unlock that awesome yellow Naboo starfighter, you had to put in 2 separate codes in sequence, then select a level and go left in the ship selection screen to then find the starfighter. Even at the time, people were amazed that they were able to keep this a secret, and it's still kind of impressive even now. Level 5's work is maybe not so appreciated anymore these days, but their games were great, as were their secrets. Next over at number 4, Fun is Infinite from Sonic CD. This is the Easter egg that spawned 1,000 creepypastas. In Sonic CD, there are a few hidden pictures you can access from the sound test screen, and while most of these are just kind of goofy and benign, there is one that seems a lot more sinister, at least to the hordes of kids in North America who saw this thing back in the day. The screen has Japanese text and a creepy Sonic face and a pattern in the background, and that text is where the screen gets its name. It says, Infinite Fun, Sega Enterprises, image by Majin. Combine all this with the sinister boss music and all that, like you've single-handedly created an entire generation of weird internet lore, creepypasta-obsessed people. So what is the deal with this thing? Is the game actually haunted? Maybe, but the real answer is much more mundane. The music is actually different in the Japanese version of the game, and the boss music is a lot more cartoony sounding, and like that signature Majin, that's actually Madin, a nickname of Masato Nishimura, who worked as a landscape designer in the game. Now, the face is supposed to be a caricature of himself, and while it comes off creepy in the US version, the music, and actually knowing what the text says in the Japanese version, takes a lot of the bite out of this whole thing. Still, this has to be one of the most infamous hidden messages in any game, even if it's not meant to be nearly as scary as it kind of ended up being. Now at number 3, Stop and Swap from Banjo-Kazooie. Now, this is the secret that haunted the minds of secret-obsessed children the world over for a while. For years, people were obsessed about what this is, what it was meant to be, and how it was meant to work. The basic idea was that Rare wanted to take advantage of the way the Nintendo 64 would store information on RAM temporarily on the console to make it so that info could actually be shared between games. Now, keep in mind, Nintendo 64 had no internal memory, so this whole thing was a pretty hacky way to get this stuff to work. And because of that, Nintendo was worried about the rare possibility of damage to the console or cartridge and the fact that it may not even work in future hardware models of the N64. So even though the first Banjo game was chock full of stop and swap branding and secrets, including an ice key and Easter eggs hidden around, they couldn't actually do anything with any of it. So as kids, we all got these hints about the amazing stuff you could do with Stop and Swap, but it ended up being a big load of nothing. Banjo-Tooie tried to make good by adding some follow-ups to the first game's teases, but it just wasn't the same. It wasn't until the games got remastered on Xbox did we finally get some kind of working Stop and Swap. It still wasn't the system Rare originally envisioned, but it was something, and you got a few cute Xbox Live avatar items for your trouble, so I guess it was something. It can't be understated just how obsessed some people were with this whole Stop and Swap thing. It was one of the great unknowns for so long. So when Rare finally did spill the beans about what they were originally planning, it was almost anticlimactic. Kind of boring, whatever, but at least we can all stop speculating for now. At least until Banjo 3E finally gets announced. We can dream. Next, over at number 2, the never-ending Easter egg from Trials Evolution. Now, these are two things the Trials series is known for: ball-bustingly hard driving challenges and some of the most unhinged, insano Easter eggs of all time. All of their games had them, but like the hunt for these things hit a fever pitch around 2013-ish, when the Easter egg evolved beyond the scope of just a simple game. There was Trials HD and its weirdly complex Easter egg, but it was nothing compared to the game's follow-up, Trials Evolution. It all started with some weird wooden planks that hid a secret message. From there, secret hunters used a special maneuver described in the message to unlock a hidden song filled with more clues that like eventually pointed towards like a website. This is where the Easter egg gets really crazy, because once people figured out the website's puzzles, they found a series of images that revealed real-world locations where packages had been hidden. And these things were like all over the place. There was one in Sydney, Australia, one in the UK, one in San Francisco that was buried and apparently had been there for a while because there was no physical evidence that it had been buried recently. Another one in Helsinki in Finland. All of these had multiple clues that had to be followed to find their locations, and inside each package were even more elaborate clues to uncover this mystery. They went nuts. Most ARGs aren't this elaborate, let alone like just some silly Easter egg in a video game. So what's the ultimate solution? Well, to bring 4 keys to the base of the Eiffel Tower in 2113. Yes, the year 2113, 100 years exactly after the secret was uncovered. Apparently, arrangements have been made and something will happen in 2113, which sounds completely ridiculous, but I guess if they went to all this effort up to this point, something's got to happen, right? Something good? This wasn't all just a big waste of time, was it? Are we wasting our time here? Is this all just marketing? What are we doing? Anyway. Now finally, down at number 1, of course, Bigfoot in Rockstar games. You know we were going to mention it. We always do. What other gaming legend is more legendary as old big and hairy himself, Bigfoot? For years, and we're talking years, people were absolutely convinced that there was a Yeti or a Sasquatch or yes, even a Bigfoot somewhere in the hills of San Andreas. And they were absolutely dead set on finding it. Like entire wikis exist because of this thing. There was like entire fan groups dedicated to the single-minded goal of being the first person to discover the Rockstar Bigfoot, the San Andreas Bigfoot. Like it wasn't just an obsession, it was Bigfoot mania. And the GTA community had it pretty bad. The interesting thing about this whole myth, though, is that there doesn't seem to be a definitive source. Just a lot of people saying the same thing at once. With most games, it's pretty easy to find the starting point where an urban legend really started to take off, but San Andreas was so explosively popular with so many people playing it that it's nearly impossible to say exactly where or how all these Bigfoot rumors really started. All we know for sure is that in San Andreas, at least, there is no Bigfoot. Rockstar says it's not in any of the game files or in any version of the game. There was no Bigfoot in San Andreas. At least not that San Andreas. The rumors and fan obsession was so strong, of course, that Rockstar basically had to put a Bigfoot somewhere in their games. There's one in Red Dead Redemption, Undead Nightmare.
I'm the last of my kind. We've lived in these hills 1,000 years.
You eat babies.
If you say so. Humans.
And the Sasquatch shows up in multiple places in GTA 5, but even with all that, it still feels like we haven't gotten enough Bigfoot for how much everyone was obsessed over this thing back in the day. Now, all Rockstar has to do is pay off the Mount Chiliad mystery in Grand Theft Auto 6. I know they sort of followed it up in like GTA Online, but that's not good enough. Rockstar loves their mysteries and secrets, dude, so much that, like, at least for most people, all that stuff kind of overshadows everything else. We want more Bigfoot. Keep it up, guys. But anyway, those are 10 legendary video game Easter eggs, the one that we're talking about for years. There are many more out there, so let us know any of your picks in the comments. Something we haven't mentioned before in the past. If you got it, just hit us with it. Now, if you like talking games with us every day and passing the time, clicking the like button's all you gotta do. It really helps us out. And if you're new, consider subscribing, maybe hitting that notification bell because we put out videos every single day. But As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.